the C-130 I was on almost exploded. We took off from Manus, and we got up about 10,000 feet, and I was just about dozed off. I'd been on them before. They didn't scare me. They make all kinds of funny noises. They leak. Oil drips on you while you're sitting in them. I mean, they're just that way. Just about asleep when I heard a bang. I thought, well, that's weird. And so I kind of woke up and took my sunglasses off, and I looked down through the back of the plane, and the crew are running frantically back and forth looking out windows. And I thought, well, shit, if they're scared, now I'm scared. And the plane instantly banked and went straight down. And it was like that. And then just before we hit the runway, it flared and hit the runway, came to a stop. And they're like, get off the plane, we're on fire, we're on fire.
Oh.
And one of the engines had exploded.
All right, Scott. Thanks for coming on, man. It's been a crazy morning, but we got it all set up. So,
well, it's good to be here, man. I kind of honored that you asked.
Yeah, I remember hearing some cool stories back when we were working transport together about your military days, and I've had a few guests on recently that we've been talking about like the giving up alcohol life, and I remember your big story on that too. So, yeah. And I think you just hit. I don't remember which chip you just showed on your thing, but it was like a big 15 year sobriety. Yeah. So yeah. I thought I think it's like kind of jarred me. I was like, I should get this guy on because he's got some good wisdom that I think people could hear, and really need. Because I know for me, alcohol was one of the things that got me the closest to getting a divorce with my wife, and I did not want that. So that was like one of the big reasons I ended up quitting drinking. And I think in law enforcement too, like a lot of people just turn to alcohol as like a coping, and then.
Yeah, I didn't really, I was never in law enforcement until after I quit. I had always wanted to get into law enforcement. I had tried, and I think that that was God's way of telling me that I wasn't ready
to be a street cop.
Yeah, because I don't think I could have been a street cop because I think I would have gotten in. I would have still been using.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have been a very good cop at that point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have lasted very long, that's for sure.
Yeah, dude, let's start it out. Where are you from? You got a big old Iowa shirt on.
Yeah, I born and raised in southwest Iowa. Born in Council Bluffs, which is right across the river from Omaha, Nebraska. So I hate the Cornhuskers. In about 2008, for the first time, I came out here for my command in the Army Reserve stood up out here. And so I came out here for a meet and greet, had no idea, never been to Idaho before. In fact, when I landed on the airplane, we flew over Boise, and I made fun of the Blue Stadium. I had no idea. And I spent a weekend out here, and I fell in love with the place, and I said, that's where I want to be. And that was about 2008. And then about 2011, it was right after I got out of rehab. To quit drinking. My boss that was out here on the Army side said, if you were serious about moving out here, I can get you a full-time job working with me in the Army Reserve. But it's up to you. And I was like, sold. And so my wife at the time and the kids, we packed up and moved out here. And been out here ever since and have no desire to ever move back. I love it out here.
Yeah. So what was life like growing up in Iowa?
I grew up in a farm community. I think there was 800 people in the town, small town. My graduating class in high school was 24 people. And the top 14 people in the class were National Honor Society students. So I'm proud to say I was silver honor roll, but I graduated toward the bottom of the class. But it was a small community, typical 1980 lifestyle, jamming out to AC/DC and Motley Crue and cruising the local strip.
Yeah,
every night.
What was there to do in Iowa? I mean, I think of it and it's like, is it what it sounds like? It's just all farmland, nothing.
It's not as much farmland as you would think. I mean, we don't in Iowa. There's no you can't hunt with a high-powered rifle because it's too condensed, the population. So it's shotgun and black powder and archery only. So you can drive 20 minutes, get to a town, 20 minutes, get to a town, 20 minutes, get to a town. Where, I mean, out here, you could drive 2 hours and not see civilization.
Oh, okay.
So it is pretty condensed. I mean, I guess it's hard for me to guess what it would be like from somebody looking outside in. And the best way to explain it would be the first time I took my wife there. She could not get over the perfection in the rows of corn. That was the biggest shock to her, was how perfect and how rolling the hills looked.
Yeah.
And how perfect the rows of corn were. I think pretty much everybody I grew up with at some point worked for farmers, walking beans or detasseling corn, or in a local grocery store. Those were the 3 big jobs for teenagers.
Is that right? When did you start working?
I was about 14, and I started working for a farmer walking beans, and I did that throughout the summers.
What is that? I'm sorry.
So the beans, you walk down an entire field of beans, could be 500 acres, and you walk the rows, and you have a thing called a bean hook that's basically like a long pole with a knife on the end of it, and you see a weed in the beans, like a random, we called it free corn or whatever, where like a corn stalk would grow out of place. You cut that, or sunflower, any kind of weed.
Yeah.
You're basically weeding the garden is what you do. And you just walk up and down the road doing that until the field's all done. I never did the detasseling corn. I had friends that did, but it was cutting the tassels off the top of the corn stalks is from what I gather. Hot work, crappy work.
Yeah. Was that kind of a requirement growing up that you were going to get a job at as soon as you could?
Yeah. My parents had kind of put it to me, if I wanted a car, the only way to get a car was to go to work. And so I would work through the summer. I mowed yards. I did everything I could do. And then when I think I was 16 years old, I applied for a grocery store that was about 20 miles away. And I worked there until, I think I started there in 88 or 89, and I worked there until 2000.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did that. I did everything there. I was a baker, worked a little bit in the meat department. I was a shift manager for the store. I did everything there was to do in that store.
So you didn't go military right out of high school then?
I did. I joined the Guard.
Oh, okay.
When I was 17. I was a junior in high school.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did you come from a military family?
I had 2 uncles that served in Vietnam, but at that time, you didn't talk about Vietnam around them.
Yeah,
because they both had really bad PTSD.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of an elephant in the room. I had no idea what the National Guard or even what the Army was, and I was in my guidance counselor's office, being told that I was probably going to pump gas for a living. Because he kept asking me what I wanted to do with my life, and I didn't know. And the recruiter was there to see somebody else, and the counselor had to go to the restroom or something. I forget what it was, and the recruiter started talking to me, and 3 days later, I was inducted into the National Guard.
There you go.
It was that quick.
Yeah. The whole go talk to your parents thing and all that in high school.
Yeah, when I went home and told my parents, my dad was like, ain't no way. I don't even know why he's coming over here. We ain't doing that. You want to do that crap, you can do it when you're 18. You can sign it on your own. And I was like, just listen to what he has to say. And the recruiter was there for a whole 20 minutes, and my dad was ready to sign papers.
Oh, right on. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. And so then I went to basic training between my junior and senior year.
Oh, and between the high and the summertime?
Yeah. Yeah, which was quite a culture shock.
Yeah. What was that like?
That was horrible.
Where was that at?
Fort Benning, Georgia. It was hot.
Middle of summer. Yeah. Humid, hot.
I remember getting off the plane in Columbus, Georgia. And I think it was Atlanta was where the airport's at. And we got off the airport, and the humidity instantly hit us, and it was 9:00 at night. And there's a whole bunch of people waiting, and a bus rolls in, picks you up, and then it takes you onto the base. And right away, drill sergeants were there. Get off my truck! Get off! Just screaming at you. So I went from the weekend before, where I was driving a loop, drinking beer with my buddies, to this guy scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Did you have any idea of what to expect going in?
I had watched the movie Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah. There you go.
And I had asked a friend of mine who had been through it, I asked if that's what it was really like. And he says, oh, they toned it down. And so I was petrified.
Oh, the movie toned it down.
Yeah, so I was petrified. But looking back, I don't think it was near as bad. And I understand now why they did what they did. I think they should do it now. Today, I think that's the way they should teach people, but they don't anymore.
I heard that they were reversing the standards to like in the 90s now. That like Hegseth, I think that's the director of war, right? He had just announced that they were going to put the standards back to where it was in the early 90s.
Yeah, I think they're trying to go back to focusing more on we're going to train to fight instead of focusing so much on, and I used to make fun of it, focusing so much on you drink too much, you're suicidal, and you're probably trying to have sex with your friend, with your partner or you're another soldier. Mm-hmm. So everything, those were the big three things that you spent every day talking about instead of training on, okay, this is how I pull the trigger and make that decision.
Yeah, the actual best person gets the job, not just because they need a diversity hire.
Well, and they focus so much on, and this is funny because I'm a recovering alcoholic to say this, but they focused way too much on substance abuse. And they talk about a lot of how people need to get to know their subordinates better. And I think when they took the NCO clubs and the enlisted clubs off of bases, I think that terminated a lot of the ways that people got to know their subordinates a lot better. Because, you sit down with somebody, hey, let me buy you a beer, and you start talking to them, you learn a lot about somebody by buying them a beer.
Yeah.
Or just sitting there talking to them in a different environment out of work. Well, that's gone now. So the only way to get to know somebody is to sit at work and talk to them, and nobody's going to sit and tell their boss how they really feel.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work that way.
So you're saying they were getting rid of bars on base? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they got really stringent on having any kind of we call them E-club, which is an enlisted club.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much a thing of the past. I think the last place that I went that there was an actual non-commissioned officers club was Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and that was in 2003. And that was actually, you could go after you were done for the day and sit in there and have a drink or have a burger.
Yeah.
But that was the last time I saw anything like that on a military base. And then it became to where if you have more than one drink in a month, you're an alcoholic. I mean, they totally went off the deep end. I mean, I was obviously.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that aren't.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see why they went that way because the military has a tendency to go with that. If it can save one person, then we have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way they look at it. Like, here's your bubble wrap. Make sure you're wrapped in it before you go out the door because we don't want nothing to happen to you.
Yeah.
That type of mentality.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of people do bond and socialize over alcohol. And,
yeah.
And I mean, yeah, like you said, not everybody has an alcoholic problem. They can handle a couple beers and
there's
fine,
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong. And the way I've looked at it over the years is that if you want to go have a beer, that's great. I'll sit with you and have a Dr. Pepper.
Mm-hmm.
I abused it, therefore I lost my privilege to be able to sit down and have a beer. Do I miss it? Yes. Do I know what can happen if I take a drink? Absolutely. And so that's what drives me from doing it ever again.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying, like, I don't think that I would probably be a one and done. Like, once I get it, and that was the thing, too, when I was a drinker, I wasn't a casual drinker. Like, I wouldn't drink just to drink. If I started, I wouldn't stop. I could make a 6-pack last for a month in my fridge, but as soon as I cracked that first one, they were all gone.
Yeah, and that was with me is the minute that I took the first drink, I was getting drunk. And a 6-pack was nothing. That was starters for me. I would. It was usually around 18 before I considered stopping.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And it was that way every night.
And you had said that you had started drinking in high school, like before you said before you'd gone to basic, you and your buddies were drinking and stuff. When did you start drinking?
Oh, I was probably starting to dabble in it when I was around 16 or 17. And the weird thing is our town almost condoned it, the town that I grew up in. We had a street called Broadway, and it was a divided street, one way on each side. And that was where we would cruise. And they had trash cans placed all up and down where you could just drive up with your car and throw your empty in there. And it was almost like it was condoned.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big deal. Cops catch you, they just make you pour it out. And so it was probably around 16. Me and a buddy'd get a 6-pack, drink 2 apiece, and think we were hammered, you know.
Yeah.
But that's probably where it started, and it was just everybody did it. It wasn't a big deal.
And then once you get to the military, they kind of just let it happen too.
Yeah. When I was in basic training, I was 17 years old, and for those of us that when they made us take our Army physical fitness test for the record, those of us that got a pass on the first time, the drill sergeants took us to the club, and we were allowed to drink. They actually brought in strippers. It was just something today somebody could go to jail for today.
That was in the late 80s, you said?
It was 1989.
Yeah.
So it's just the Army kind of, that and smoking. Those two things when I joined were the two things that were the norm. Everybody did it. And then even up through the time before I turned 21, anytime I was TDY, it didn't matter. Beer was readily available. Alcohol was readily available. It wasn't until probably the mid to late 90s that things started to shift away from that.
Yeah.
That the smoking got to where they were starting to really crack down on smoking in buildings and things like that, and kind of try to pull away from that. When I went to basic training, you weren't allowed to smoke. But I found ways to chew. But the military's kind of pulled away from that. The last few years I was in before I retired, there was absolutely very little alcohol provided. Anytime we were TDY, and by this time I was one of the senior people, and so I was the one standing in front of the group saying, "Hey, no alcohol. You guys can go out on the town, but nobody drinks." It's just, I'm not going to deal with people getting in trouble.
Yeah. What was your hardest part about going through basic and just that culture shock? And were you already like a pretty fit dude, so it wasn't really the fitness side of it? But
yeah, I was a student athlete, so I wrestled. I did track. I played baseball. 1 year I played golf. So going and doing physical fitness every day wasn't a game changer to me. And I was kind of at the mindset, well, what are they going to do? Make me do push-ups? Okay, so I'm going to make myself better.
yeah,
I'm doing something that's good for me.
right.
The hardest thing, the culture shock to me is I had come out of wrestling where I cut weight. That's the way they preached back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got to basic, I think I weighed 125 pounds. I was 6 foot tall, weighed 125 pounds.
Dang.
And the drill sergeants called me, I suppose you'll have to bleep it out, but they called me a bulimic fuck. And so every time I ate, I would hear one of the drill sergeants say, "Where's my bulimic fuck at?" And I'd have to come running up and say, "Right here, drill sergeant." And say, "Go back through again." And I'd have to eat again. And so I weighed 167 pounds when I came home.
Probably a bunch of muscle though.
Yeah, I mean, I was
Yeah.
stocky. It was gone in 6 months, but
Yeah.
but I was built. And so that was probably the toughest thing. My mom always said that I was the bird that would fly the nest at any time. And so I wasn't afraid to step out
Yeah.
and go away from home. So being away from my mom didn't bother me much. I did have a girlfriend, a high school sweetheart at the time, and that was probably tough.
Yeah. What's
That
basic, like 12 weeks?
It was 8 weeks back then.
8 weeks?
Yeah, and that was just your simple basic training. That didn't include any kind of tech training or anything like that.
Is that normal to go into the Army at 17? Or is that the regular age, or is that what it was back then?
For the Guard, you can do that.
Okay.
And I think it's still normal today because my son did it
Oh, okay.
about 8 years ago. He did the same thing.
I was thinking for some reason you had to be 18.
Yeah, I think
But
to go into the actual army, you do
like
into
active.
to go active duty, you got to
Okay.
be
Yeah,
18.
because they have that one high school program. What is it? What's it called? Like the ROTC,
Yeah,
right?
ROTC.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I remember that was a thing.
yeah, the junior. I think it's called junior ROTC.
Yeah, when I went through the CERT Academy, they had to be like middle school kids. They weren't even high schoolers yet, but they were right above us in the dorms, and you just heard every morning at 5 o'clock they're getting yelled at and everything. We seen them lining up out front, and then that was wild. But I was like, that's good for those kids. That's a lot better than being tablet kids in the middle of the summer. Like,
Yeah, no kidding. At least they're out doing something.
yeah. What'd you go into the military for? Like, what was your assignment you were gonna do?
When I initially joined, I had signed up to be a 11 Hotel, which was a designator for, I was infantry, but anti-armor. And so we drove around in Humvees with a tow missile system on the top of it. And we'd have one guy that was a gunner, and he would shoot at tanks. So we were in Humvees to fight tanks. But the nice thing is we could shoot from almost 2 miles away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the acronym TOW, it's spelled just like it sounds, TOW, stood for tubular launched, optically sighted, wire guided. So it was, the missile had 2 wires that came back to the system. And when you look through the sight, whatever you kept the crosshairs on, that missile would go to
Oh,
where,
really?
and it would hit exactly where your crosshairs were at.
That's pretty sweet.
And the wires had 2.5, 3 miles worth of wire inside the missile system that went to the actual gun
Wow.
that fired it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
And then probably mid-90s, the Army decided to do away with those designators. And so they made us 11B, which is infantry, straight leg infantry. But they gave us, I think it was called an H designator, which meant that we were qualified to be anti-armor gunners.
So as a reserve, you were in the reserves then, right?
That was in the Guard.
In the Guard. So as being in the Guard, that was 1 weekend a month, and then did you ever get deployed while you were in the Guard?
Yeah, I did. I did a year in Afghanistan with the Guard, and then I did a couple of different TDYs. I did a TDY in Hohenfels, Germany. That one I was it was for an exercise where we played the enemy for the 82nd Airborne.
What's a TDY? Sorry.
Temporary duty.
Oh, okay.
And we played the enemy for the 82nd Airborne before the 82nd Airborne dropped into Kosovo. And so we were there to, we basically acted like guerrillas, hid in the woods, attacked them here and there. And that's what we did for a month. And that was great. And that was when I was still drinking, and I drank a lot of beer in Germany.
Oh, yeah. Does it hit differently than here in the States?
Yeah, but it's also fun because every village has their own brew.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, you
drink it warm there, though, right? In Germany? It's not cold.
Yeah, they make fun of you if you ask for a cold beer.
You're like, can I get some ice for my beer or what?
Yeah, I remember one time I was in this bar and I asked for a Miller Lite, and the guy made fun of me. He said, "You Americans don't know what good beer is." And so then I came up the next time and I said, "All right, what do you recommend?" And he poured me something, and he goes, "You want a glass?" And I said, "No, I'll drink it out of the bottle." And he goes, "Here's a glass." And it was, you could hold it up to the sun and couldn't see the sun through it. It was so dark, but it was good.
Yeah.
But that was fun. That was in the mid-90s. And then when 9/11 hit, everything got real fast. We started doing a lot more train ups. So we would temporarily go to places and train in different environments. We did a stretch in I think it was just out. It used to be called Fort Chaffee, but I think it's Camp Chaffee now, and it's in Arkansas. Place is full of armadillos and snakes and tarantulas. That's all I remember, and it was horrible. And my buddies had a rubber snake, and every time I would do something, that damn snake would fall on me and just scare the bejesus out of me every 5 minutes, and it was horrible. And then,
so what were they prepping for in those areas? Is that just like simulation combat units or combat areas?
Yeah. And then, towards the end of 2002 and 2003, our unit came up as a possible tip of the spear to go into Iraq before the initial invasion. And so I was working
Your
really,
guard unit?
yeah. So I was working full time at that time towards outfitting the unit. And I'd actually, my civilian job, I'd left that temporarily and was on active duty at the time to help outfit the unit. And then toward the end of 2000, well, toward the end of 2003, they figured that they were going to send a different unit, so they backed us out of that position. And so we stood down and went right. So then I went back to work at my civilian job, and I was there for about 3 months when the order came down to pack your stuff, you're going to Afghanistan. That order came down, and 6 months later, I was in Kandahar. It was that quick.
Was it hard for you going from a military, like even when you went active duty for a little bit, to go back to a civilian job? Like just going from like kind of a chaotic kind of go to kind of just at a civilian job? I would feel like that'd be an interesting shift.
It wasn't too bad. I don't think so. I had a crappy civilian job at the time, and so I dreaded going back just because I couldn't stand it.
Was that the grocery store one?
No, I was actually an insurance adjuster at that time.
Oh, okay.
And so everything was a fight. Everybody you talked to wanted to fight with you and argue and everything. And so I dreaded going back. But after I had been on that, preparing for that other mission, I had learned some different organizational skills that helped me in my civilian job. So when I came back to that for that short amount of time before I went to Afghanistan, I was actually excelled at the job. And I don't know what I learned different, but I learned something different that helped me organize and helped me negotiate better. And so I was able to swim through that. But it was only like a short few months before I had to pack my stuff and head out.
And that time that you had to head out, was that your first time going active on deployment?
For a combat tour, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first time. During the first Gulf War, we were actually called in, had our alert notice, and this was in 91, I think. We'd actually had our alert notice. We're getting ready to go. Scared the bejesus out of me because I was 19, 20 years old. And at the time, Saddam Hussein was saying it was going to be the mother of all wars and the end of times and everything else. So it was a little nerve-wracking. We had our alert notice. We were ready to go, and the war was over as quick as it started, and so we didn't have to go.
Yeah.
And then, so that was as close as I came on that one. And then when 9/11 happened, I got called in to act as a security force around our National Guard building. It was the headquarters for the 1st Battalion, 168th Infantry. And so we had everything from Beretta pistols to tow missiles and mortars in that building. And so we secured it. And I did that for about a month. And then in 2004, that's when my first combat tour that I actually went on.
What was that like?
That was an awakening. We left. We actually went from Iowa to Fort Hood, Texas, and we were there from March until May, doing train up. And then,
what do you do during that? You just kind of get you ready for the area and stuff like that.
Yeah. They have a certain list of tasks that the Army has to put you through this so that they can say, yes, he's been trained to do that. He knows how to do that. You get all your weapons qualifications. You learn a lot of first aid stuff. Any kind of weapon you're going to be dealing with, you get qualified to handle that weapon. Driver's training, how to drive a Humvee or any other kind of truck you'll come across. They have a whole lot of scenario training where you go through and you meet with village elders and discuss things with them. They call them key leader engagements.
Do they teach you any kind of the language?
A little bit. They teach you some of the customs. There's a lot of customs briefs, things like that.
Oh, like things that they might consider disrespectful you don't want to do that you wouldn't even think of?
Yeah, they'll put you, we call it fob training. They put you in a little fob, and then you're in this thing and you receive missions and things. And outside of your secure area, there's a village that's full of people that are acting as Afghanis, and they do things and you have to react to what they do and they'll react to how you react. And so it's to train you how to deal with that kind of thing. Um, I don't think it helped. I don't think any of that helped.
Because it just isn't as realistic as the real
Yeah,
thing. Or
I mean, you know that you're looking at a dude with a buzz haircut that's wearing a turban. I mean, you know that this guy's an E7 in the Army, just acting like an Afghani, and it's just hard to take serious because it just doesn't look real.
yeah,
Then in May we ended up flying from Fort Hood and we landed in Kyrgyzstan, Manas, Kyrgyzstan, which was a former Soviet republic.
is that in the C-130s? Is that what you guys are flying over there in?
That's where you get picked up in a C-130. If they charter a commercial jet, like a 747, and stuff it full of soldiers, rifles and all, and then it flies straight to. I think we stopped. We stopped in a few places. We didn't get off the plane, but we stopped in a few places, and then we landed in Kyrgyzstan, and that's the extent of the stewardesses and nice airplanes. And from there, it's C-130 into country. The C-130 I was on almost exploded.
Really?
Yeah, we took off from Manas and we got up about 10,000 feet, and I was just about dozed off. I'd been on them before. They didn't scare me. They make all kinds of funny noises. They leak. Oil drips on you while you're sitting in them. I mean, they're just that way. And I was just about asleep when I heard a bang. And I thought, well, that's weird. And so I kind of woke up and took my sunglasses off, and I looked down through the back of the plane, and the crew are running frantically back and forth looking out windows. And I thought, well, shit, if they're scared, now I'm scared. And the plane instantly banked and went straight down. And it was like that. And then just before we hit the runway, it flared and hit the runway, came to a stop. And they're like, get off the plane, we're on fire, we're on fire.
Oh.
And one of the engines had exploded.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And so everybody, I think there was 120 of us on the plane. Everybody had to pee. And so then we were stuck there. There was like 5 of us that got stuck there for another week, which it was great. That's where I met my first CIA agent, was in Manas. On an accident, I walked into a room I wasn't supposed to be in. The guy's like, oh, you can't come in here. I'm like, noted. Out the door I went. But then getting into Kandahar, as we landed, the plane landed at the Kandahar airfield. And the first thing we noticed was as we were coming off the front of the plane, out the side door of the front of the plane, there was a tractor and they were loading coffins on the back of the plane as we were getting off. And that was my first sight that I saw in country. And it was like, okay, I'm really here. I am really here.
Yeah, that's got to be an eye opener. I mean, it's a possibility, but like for that to be the first thing that you see, and to know that those people paid the ultimate price, sacrifice.
I was later able to find that wasn't something that happened every day. That particular load of caskets and remains they were loading was a group of Special Forces soldiers that their convoy had gotten attacked by several IEDs and RPGs, and it killed, I think there was like 7 or 8 of them were Special Forces soldiers that were killed in that one attack.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you work? What was your role at this time in the military?
So at this time, I had currently reclassed to a 74 Delta, which was a chemical weapons specialist. Needed something to do, so I'd made that change just to try something new. And there was obviously no need for that over there, so my secondary MOS was still infantry. So I worked for the company commander, who we were spread all over southern Afghanistan, our company was. And so the particular platoon I was with, I was basically their operations sergeant. So I would cover down if there was somebody that went on leave, I would fill that role as the squad leader or whatever. But most of the time I supervised the ops center, where I tracked everybody's positions on maps, send a daily reports up the chain of command of activity in the area, Taliban activity. And then I submitted activity that I caught coming down the food chain, disseminated that out to the people that needed it within our base. And then our particular mission at that point was force protection for the civil affairs people, the hearts and minds, the people that were going to go out and build schools, dig wells, things like that. And so we would cordon off areas for them to meet with the village elders and protect them while they were doing their thing. USAID was another big player we dealt with. The State Department, Department of Agriculture, all of those, we protected them.
Gotcha. Was this the time? I remember you were telling me that you were working with like interpreters and stuff. Was this that one?
Yeah. We had interpreters that went with us. There was a few village sit downs that I went on where it was a big dinner, and we would all be sitting around the floor, and the feast would be in the middle, and each person would have an interpreter with them, so you could at least get what the conversation was. You could add to the conversation. The one in particular that I remember was I was sitting with my interpreter, and the village elder's 3 sons, for some reason, picked me out of the group, and I was the one they wanted to talk to. And they wanted to have a debate as why we call our football and theirs soccer. That was out of everything going on the planet. That's what they wanted to argue about. You're not allowed to touch it with your hands. It should be called football, not soccer. You touch your football with your hands.
Yeah. That's funny.
So that was the one that sticks out in my mind for that.
You mentioned agriculture, and the first thing that popped up to my mind was like, I remember hearing something about they have a lot of the opiate plants over there. Is that right? Is that Iraq?
No, it's Afghanistan. It's like
right?
The opium capital of the world.
Yeah. Did you guys ever have any issues with like soldiers getting into that kind of stuff?
No, not on my base, but one of the other bases my company operated out of, we had an issue with morphine.
Oh, okay.
And that wasn't just because they bought it on the black market. That was because they had access to it. But it was very little. Most of the reason why we had agriculture there was to try to teach these people how to grow corn instead of opioids. And it's like, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm from Iowa, and I know corn does not grow in the desert. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that, but that's what they were trying to teach them. And how you take somebody and tell them, hey, you can grow this crop and make $2.50 a bushel versus the millions that they're making off of poppies.
Yeah.
To me, it was a stupid.
Was it illegal for the Afghanis to be selling poppies? Was it like an illegal growth thing, or I know obviously for America, right? But
yeah, I don't remember if their government. I think after Karzai became the Afghani president, it was illegal. He made it illegal, but I think it was one of those, hey, it's illegal,
right?
Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah.
Don't get caught.
Yeah.
But we never messed with the drug trade. We did know one drug lord. And we didn't mess with his stuff because he kept a road clear for us. So we didn't mess with his poppies, and he kept the IEDs off the road that we drove on.
Kind of like an Afghani cartel.
Yeah, it's exactly what it was. It was, you let us know when you'll come in this way. We clear road for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he would make sure that there wasn't, if we were in his area, there was no IEDs to hurt us.
Would you guys train the Afghani civilians too, as like to train up their military, or was that something later on that started?
Yeah, we did have we called it a PTAT team, which was police training and assessment team, and so they would train local nationals the art of law enforcement. We actually bought and supplied them police cars. They were little Toyota pickups.
Yeah,
but I'm sure they all have machine guns mounted on them now, but
yeah.
Well, we supplied those to them. And then at one point during the first presidential election for Afghanistan, we had Afghan National Army on our base, which was quite a culture shock to have a bunch of people that you don't really know if they're on your side or not, carrying AK-47s following you around, a little different. But for the most part, they were pretty respectful. The only thing that we could not get them to do was use a toilet. They just wouldn't. They would rather dig a hole right in front of you and go. So that was a little odd. We built them a porta potty. They just had to light it on fire every night, and they wouldn't do it. They'd dig a hole and pour it all in the dirt before they'd burn it.
Jeez.
But that was a culture shock. I did have one of them one time. I was helping him do something, and I had a cross that I wore that my mom gave me before I left. And we always tried to keep our religious symbols hidden because we're in their country. We don't want to offend them. That is
Right.
the Muslim faith.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to be friends with them. And I was helping him do something, and he reached out, and one of them did, and he kind of picked up my necklace and looked at it. And all he would say was Jesus, and then he would make the like hanging on a cross motion. And I was like, "Oh, sorry," and I tucked it in. And no, you're good.
Yeah.
And so he was being respectful of my
Yeah.
faith, and I think he was respectful of the fact that I was not being disrespect. I was trying not to disrespect his faith. So that was some of the culture shock too with dealing with them. Was for the most part they were good people.
Yeah.
Just in a bad situation.
How was that working with them? Like, because they have multiple times a day where they got to pray, right? So if you guys are training them, you got to take a break, or how did that work?
Yeah, we. I don't remember their call to prayer being that big of a distractor. It was kind of one of the things that was built into the daily activities.
Oh, okay.
I had one guy that wasn't. He worked on our base. There was only 80 of us on our base, 80 Americans, and I don't know what his name was. I just called him Dilbert, and I carried at any given time between $50,000 and $100,000 in cash on me. And so if I needed something, that was my money that I used to get something off the local economy, or if we needed anything, maintenance items, I could use that. I had to document every dime I spent. And so Dilbert, I would need something, and Dilbert would come up. I'd have an interpreter, and I'd tell Dilbert what I needed. And when I pulled the money out, if I gave him too much, he would go, no, and he would give me back. And he always brought me change with a receipt. I don't know what the receipt said. He could have said Americans are dumb. I wouldn't have known any better.
Yeah.
But he always documented everything. But I would catch members of our unit that would harass him when he was doing his call to prayer. And it used to piss me off something fierce. I'm like, leave that guy alone, man. He's probably the most honest person out here.
Yeah.
Let him pray.
Yeah.
Let him pray. That's his faith.
Yeah.
Ain't anybody say shit before you duck your head before your meal.
Right.
Let him pray.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you telling me you had like a whole room that was just stacked full of bricks or like pallets of cash, right?
Yeah.
Well, so is that just like for you guys to like work with the governments around there to pay, or how does that? What was that money for?
So it was called the position that I had. It was a secondary duty. It was called the field ordering officer. And so I would have to take some training and everything, and then I would go in and I would draw this cash, and I think the most I ever drew was $75,000. And so I used that money for, like, say we needed something done on our base that obviously the Army couldn't provide, or they didn't have the supply to provide it. Like we wanted rock brought in because it was just a dust bowl anytime a vehicle drove around in our base. So we wanted rock brought in so to knock down the dust. That's what I used to pay the locals to come in and do that. If we had a problem with anything to do with our compound, building structures or anything like that, I would use that money to pay the local economy to come in and take care of it. We were required to have access to local internet because we had a intelligence team that was part of our outfit, so that they could monitor local internet, local websites, just looking for intelligence things. And so I paid for the local internet, and it was $1,000 a month for internet.
Wow.
Off the local economy. So yeah, I used that money for anything. Everywhere I went, I had an armed guard.
Yeah.
I had people following me. One funny thing that did happen was I got called to the front gate, and they said that a local farmer had his pickup and claimed that one of our Humvees hit it, and he wanted money to pay for the damage. And so I go up there, and I think there was like 3 bolts total holding this rusted frame of a Toyota on the body of a Toyota on the frame. It was ready to fall apart. And I could see where it looked like something probably was fresh. And I asked the interpreter, I said, how much money or how much does he want? And he said, he wants $25,000. I said, well, You tell him I'll give him 500 and go away. And interpreter goes, talks to him, comes back, says, no, he's pretty he's set $25,000. I said, well, tell him he'll take $500 or I'll just shoot him and take his truck. Comes back, he'll take the $500. And so it was $500 and off he went. I would never have done that, but it just at the time it seemed like something funny to say, and it worked.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll have to use that negotiation tactic back in the States.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you guys ever have any close calls with your base getting like attacked or anything?
We did. We had during when we first got there before the election, we'd have people drive by because we were in downtown Lashkargah, and I want to say this is like a city of 300,000 Afghanis. We would have people drive by, lob grenades over the fence at us.
Really?
At night, usually. One night in particular, I was just getting ready to bed down. I was actually in my shorts and flip-flops and a T-shirt. I was arranging my sleeping bag on my cot, and I heard a bunch of explosions in the direction of our front gate. And so I took off running, flip-flops, T-shirt, shorts, because I had a friend that worked up there, and I didn't even think about it. I just thought somebody's hurt. I got to get up there. So I took off running, and I think I did have my rifle. And as I'm running, something comes over and lands right in front of me and explodes and knocks me on my ass. And I remember going, I had a little bit of blood on my knee, whatnot. And I remember I got up and I thought, I better go get my body armor and my helmet on before I go running into this. So I get up and I'm running back towards the barracks to get my helmet and everything. And we had a group full of, called them ASF, Afghan Security Forces. And they were locals that were supposedly vetted by the FBI and the CIA to work on the base and help with security issues. They all come out of their hut with their AKs. And I remember about passing out going, oh my God, they breached the wire and they're inside the compound.
Yeah.
And I realized who they were, so I continued to run. I got back to the barracks, and I'm putting my shit on, and my first sergeant comes rocking by, and he goes, yeah, I saw what you did, you dummy. Put your shit on and get back out there. But that happened quite a bit. Most of the time, it was just skirmish stuff. They'd take a pot shot at us every once in a while.
Yeah, the idea of like drones and stuff wasn't even a thing back then, right?
No, we
didn't. The enemies to have.
No. They didn't have anything like that. They didn't have any kind of capabilities. In fact, the way they would set explosives for us was very primitive. It worked, but it was very primitive, simple things. They did a lot of, because there's mines everywhere at the time. If you were driving down the road and you saw rocks lining a path, you stayed on that path because the rocks would be painted white on one side and red on the other. And if you were in between the whites, you were good. Anything on the other side, there was mines, because the Soviets laid landmines everywhere in that country. So
when was that?
In the 80s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so you had to be careful. And that's what the Afghanis would do is the Taliban would do is they would go and they would find these minefields, dig these mines up and make some sort of IED out of it. And set it on the side of the road waiting for you to drive by. So they had access to weapons everywhere. They just had it. We would go in and we would find things. I've got pictures of some of the caches that we found. And it's just a room about this size, and it's floor to ceiling full of mines, grenades, rockets, you name it.
Jeez.
Stuff that they had pilfered since the Soviet Union left. I could go out on the black market and buy Soviet AK-47s, and they'd sell them to you. Stuff they'd had since the 80s.
So all the AKs that like the Afghani army had, that was mainly from stuff that they had found, or was that?
No, those were bought and provided for. So if they were Afghan National Army, they had brand new, out of the box AK-47s. But some of the stuff you'd see on the black market, they even had Enfield rifles from when the British were there in the early 1900s.
If they were working with you guys, why didn't they have like Colts like you guys would? You guys wouldn't supply them, or you wanted to know the differences, or how? What was the AK thing about?
I don't know why. I don't know why we didn't give them. Maybe it was because, I don't know. Maybe it was to keep our own stuff ours. I really don't know. I don't
That's such a
know.
bigger round too, like the 308 versus the 5.56. Like
Yeah,
that's a damaging round.
it is. But those AK-47s are not accurate at all. An
No.
AK-47 is built for spraying and praying,
Mm.
and they. I don't know why we didn't field them with that. Maybe it's cost. I'm pretty sure that it's a lot cheaper to field an Army with AK-47s than it is with M16s.
Yeah. How long was that tour that you were on that one?
That was a year to the day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that average? Is it a
Yeah,
year?
at the time that was average. Now, I don't know. I can't speak for Iraq, but I'd heard rumors that a lot of them guys got extended for like 6 months. So their 1 year tours ended up going to like 18 months.
Do you get bonuses for extending? Or is
I
that just
think
like
they
mandatory
did.
at that time?
I think they did. I think they got a little bit extra. But I would. We didn't really have to deal with that. I was gone for a total of 18 months, but I was only in theater for a year straight. But yeah, I don't think they gave us, because I think it would have been offered. There's a lot of us that would have taken that extension.
When you're on active duty and on tour, what was the drinking like then?
So I could get. I didn't drink a whole lot while I was there. There was ways to get alcohol.
Oh, you guys just didn't have like supplied at the commissary or anything?
No, because supposedly it's against Muslim
Oh,
doctrine to drink. And then since they're the host country, we try to respect that. Now, that being said, there was a place in Kandahar that I believe that's where all the media went and partied. And we could pull in there and we could buy alcohol there. For the first part of the time we were there, we could get anything there. And then it was like somebody else took over and they said, you guys know you're not supposed to be drinking. So no, we're not going to give it to you. So then it went to where I'd made friends with some of the interpreters that worked with us. And so I'd give them a $20 bill and say, go find me a bottle of something. And there was days I would get, like one day I got a bottle of Maker's Mark that was Pakistani and Pakistani writing on it. Another day I got a water bottle that just said ethanol. So it was kind of luck of the draw on what you get. Sometimes you get a bottle of gin. But it was always some foreign made thing. And no matter how good or how bad it was always the same cost, $20.
yeah.
And so every now and then I would get a bottle of something and then I would just sip something at night to help me calm down and go to sleep. But I didn't drink a whole lot while I was there. My philosophy was that I'm not going to die because I was drunk.
Yeah. Especially where you don't even know, like in the middle of the night where something could happen and you're not even expecting it. You're in your skivvies and you could be drunk and that happens. Now you're.
And I didn't have the problem with alcohol at that time that I did eventually. At that time, I could still not drink and not worry about it. I could still have a beer and just stop at that point. Alcohol wasn't a tool for me at that time.
Gotcha. So what was base life like? Do you have any days off or are you always on duty every day? Or do you have like a day where you can do your laundry or like, is that just kind of like an hourly thing? I'm not even sure how that would work.
It got to be where it was pretty normal. Again, there was only 80 of us on that base. I had that worked for me in the operations center. I had 4 or 5 people, and so I got it to where I developed a schedule to where everybody got one day to kind of sit in a room and decompress for the day, read a book, play a game on their computer, whatever they wanted to do, play Xbox. A bunch of the guys had Xboxes linked together, and they played Halo and Halo tournaments. We had to have a poker tournament every Friday night. Friday was their Sabbath day, so there was no missions ever on a Friday. For the most part, we were able to get downtime. That wasn't an issue. What you had access to was an issue. Like, yeah, I mean, you could either be bored at work or be bored in your room. Take your pick.
Yeah.
And
would the higher ups and the newer guys mix, or would you have your own area as a higher up, and then the I don't even know the ranks, but like would the higher ranks and lower ranks mix, or would they Just kind of have their own little areas.
We tried to keep everybody as far as what they bunked with rank specific. Like my first sergeant and my lieutenant, they were the two highest ranking officers or ranking people in the besides the FOB commander, which was a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. He had his own room, obviously, and then the first sergeant and the LT, they had their room together. Like me, I was an E6, I had an E4. He was the logistics guy, so they kind of mobbed us together. And then the rest of the unit was usually rank specific. So you had your E6s together, your E7s would bunk together, your E5s would bunk together, rank specific, how they bunked.
Yeah. Did you guys have men and women both in your unit?
I had one unit, or one woman in the unit. And she was attached to us from the 25th Infantry Division. She ran our satellite dish. That was our communication satellite.
Gotcha.
And
does she then have her own?
She had her own bunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'd have her own room. I mean, right? Yeah.
Yeah. She had her own room. I'm pretty sure it wasn't solo very often.
Yeah. What do they call those?
Personally, but
what do they call those in the military? Where they just
queen for a year.
Yeah. 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 I'm sure you're the only one in the whole unit, the only woman. Yeah.
Well, she worked for me, so I tried to maintain a professional outlook with her. She was great. I'm still friends with her on Facebook to this day.
Nice.
She was a hell of a nice lady. I think she ended up her and her husband retired, both of them. I want to say she was a master sergeant. He was a sergeant major, command sergeant major, but she lives in Alaska now.
Is it a pretty common thing for people to get like divorces and stuff while they're in active duty, and people like get those Dear John letters and stuff? And
yeah, now I can't speak for how it is now, but at that time, like say I went and say my wife wants to divorce me, they can't take any legal action against you because you're deployed. I think it falls under the Sailor Service and Relief Act. It's a federal law that somebody can't take legal action against you while you're deployed because you can't come and defend yourself.
Right.
And so that's forbidden. But we did have a few people that got those kind of letters. And so it was kind of a sketchy area because you would have guys that would find out their wives were messing around on them, so they would change their bank info and quit sending money home while they've got kids.
Yeah.
And, well, you can't do that. You still have to send money home to take care of your family. Me, before I left, it's not that I didn't trust my ex-wife. I wanted to make sure that money was saved and spent right. And so I made my dad my power of attorney, and then he supervised all my funds and everything.
Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. There was a lot of people, though, that I think that dealt with that. I didn't witness it very often.
Yeah. So what did you do when you came back then from your tour?
So I got back. I ended up going back to my civilian job, which was I was an insurance adjuster. I had a lot of problems sleeping. There's certain things that I'll take to the grave with me that I don't talk about, that for a long time I couldn't close my eyes without seeing. And so I started to get to where if I drank 6 beers, it puts me to sleep, and I sleep all night. You know, and I refused to get help. I refused to go to the VA. I refused to talk to anybody about what I'd went through. And so I slowly started to spiral and crawl into that bottle. And it went from where I'd come home, have a few beers with dinner every night, to I'd pull off, and I commuted an hour each way to work, or I'd pull into the gas station right next to the office and buy a 12-pack of beer and have half of them gone before I got home. It slowly went into that. My relationship started to fall apart with my wife at the time. The kids, they didn't want to do anything with me because I was in a stupor most of the time. And what's funny about this whole thing is that during this, I don't think my parents realized what I was going through and how much of a problem I was developing. My coworkers didn't think there was any problem. They didn't know I was drinking like that because I came to work every day. No matter how hungover I was, I rolled out of bed, made a cup of coffee, and went to work.
Yeah.
Um, and so I started at that point to really kind of spiral. And the worst part, I think the part that started me on it was I had 90 days to report to work after I got home. And I know why the government makes it to where you're eligible for this. The employer can't fire you for doing this. And I think it's because in the government's eyes or the military's eyes is that you need that 90 days to readapt, get to know your family, get to know your kids, get reaccustomed to civilian life. What that 90 days did for me while my wife was at work and the kids were at school or daycare, what that 90 days did for me was make me sit around and think about every stinking minute that I was gone. Every minute. Worst case scenario, what could have happened, what didn't happen, what did happen. And I should have just went back to work, came home, stayed home for a couple of weeks, and then went back to work, but I didn't. And I think those demons are what started spiral in me. But I came back, and I was, as far as the Army goes, I had realized at the age of, oh God, how old was I? I think it was 33 or 34 years old. I started to realize that being in the infantry, my body wasn't as good as it was when I was 20. I couldn't quite keep up with some of them younger guys, and I knew I couldn't function in that environment anymore. My best friend had left and went to the Army Reserve and was in an instructor battalion. And he finally one day, I'm like, hey, dude, I'm going to come see your unit. I want to check it out. And so at that time, about 2006, I ended up transferring from the Army National Guard into the Army Reserve. And that was a big culture shock because I went from being an infantry soldier where everything is right in front of your face. Everything is black and white. Everybody knows what their job is. Everybody knows their place in a pecking order. Everybody knows that at any minute they could die. To a unit where everybody just doesn't. It's just like going away for the weekend for a second job, And it was a total culture shock to get into I call them RIMF units, rear echelon units, and that was a culture shock. And then I ended up staying in reserve until I retired from that point. But that was the big thing. And about that same time that I transferred, I was really starting to hit full pace in my drinking. My job was kind of starting to have some bad effects. I hated my job, but at the same time, I blamed a lot at the time on why my bosses were the way they were towards me. I always blamed it as they just didn't know what I was dealing with. And looking back, no, I probably could have been a better employee. I wasn't drinking or coming to work drunk, but my attitude sucked. And I had this attitude of, you need to thank me for my service. You should be thanking me and licking my boots that I was over there fighting for you. And that's the attitude I had. And I think it was just part of being so amped knowing what I was doing while I was there that it was kind of made you feel spoiled too. But anyway, I ended up, job was starting to kind of go downhill. So I switched. I was supposed to become a supervisor is what it was. And they decided to go a different route. And I thought, oh, this is just because you don't like me.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like me. You know what? F you. You don't like me. When I look back now, I'm pretty sure I know why they didn't pick me.
Yeah.
Work ethic sucked. I came to work, but I was an ass to work with.
Sure.
Because I was sober.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to make me happy was to give me a beer.
Yeah.
But then I switched into risk management, and I did that for probably about 2 years before I quit and moved out here.
Yeah, and then you went full-time active reserve.
Yeah. So I go through all of that. About 2011, it's March, and I'm sitting in a 2,000 square foot home by myself because my wife at the time, she's moved on with the kids. She's already dating. So I'm sitting on the floor because they didn't have any furniture. And I'm watching TV, and of course I've got my beer. And I'm like, God, I can't understand why nobody wants to be around me. I just don't understand what I've done wrong to the world to deserve feeling like this. And the dog farted and walked away. And I thought, well, damn dog don't even want to sit with me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I had a suicidal thought. This is it. Let's just do it right now. And I don't know what clicked in my mind. But at that moment, I called my ex-wife and said, hey, I need somebody to take me to the hospital. I just had a thought of killing myself, and I think I need to quit drinking. And so she came and got me and took me to the VA, and the VA made me go. I went to the substance abuse unit, talked to them, like, well, we can't take you right out of the street. You've got to go to the emergency room. So I went to the emergency room, and they kind of gave me a workup and everything, and then I went back up, talked to the substance abuse unit, and this was on a Friday. And they're like, well, we won't have a bunk until Monday. Do you have a support group to help you through till Monday? They're like, oh, yeah, I do. And in my mind, I'm going, as soon as I get out of here, I'm getting freaking ripped. You know, I'm going home. I know I got booze all over the house. I'm going to go home and get drunk.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing on my mind is once she takes me back to my place and drops me off, I'm going to tie one last one on beforehand. Well, I get back to the house, and she comes in the house with me, and my parents are there, and my dad had cleaned out every bit of alcohol out of my house, threw it away, dumped it down the drains, got rid of all the bottles, everything. He had completely ransacked the house. And so, yeah, that was March 28th, 2011. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thankful every day that he did that, because had he not, I don't know if I'd ever went to rehab.
Yeah.
And I do thank my ex-wife for coming to get me that day. I mean, we found out later down the road that my alcoholism wasn't all of our problems. And so that's why we ended up splitting. But at the time, that was the root cause of every problem we had. But I don't know if she wouldn't have come and got me, who I would have called.
Yeah.
At that time.
How was that weekend for you, not drinking and waiting until Monday?
It was rough. We went up to my sister's house and stayed there, and I made sure that I was never alone. After my parents had cleaned everything out of my house, I thought, okay, this is real. So this must be God's way of telling me, hey, no, you're not getting drunk. You're done. You've made the decision. So I really tried my best to not do it. I did not have, and I'm lucky, I did not have the DTs that you see people, the people that are shaking or picking at them. I didn't have any of that. To me, I think I was blessed because to me it was easy, and it's not easy to everybody. Mm-hmm. When I got inside of rehab, I actually at one point went, I don't need to be here. These people are way worse. I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem. People screaming in the middle of the night. I mean, it was everything out of the movies you see.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, I'll give it 48 hours and see what happens. At the time I smoked too. And they kept on you about smoking. And I was like, you know what? Maybe if I'm giving one up, I should give the other up. What the hell? I'll give up smoking too. And so I went from the first day of going, I'm not here, so I'm just going to game the system for 28 days. So if my family gives me a pat on the back, no harm, no foul. To where by the time I left, I was a class leader, and I was conducting the different sessions. I was conducting AA meetings, leading them. I was the class leader, so I helped the new guys coming in, getting them squared away. And I continued, even after I was discharged, so I was discharged at the end of April, and I moved here in July. So between April and July, I went 3 days a week, nonstop.
What was that mindset shift while you were in that you're like going to take it seriously?
I think it was because I was around people that saw the same crap I did, same problems. They had the same. I had one kid that bunked next to me, and I want to say he was a few years younger than me. But one Sunday we went to church, and the sermon was, and I don't know how familiar you are with the Bible, but the sermon was about Lazarus when Jesus went and raised Lazarus from the dead.
Yeah.
And the sermon spoke to me with, I was dead, but now I'm alive.
Mm-hmm.
I was revived and given a second chance. Based off of that sermon, it hit me that hard. And that's when I was like, all right, it's clicking now. It's really clicking. I'm getting a second chance. I'm getting a second chance with my kids. I'm getting a second chance with my family. And so I started to go head first into everything. I bought into it. Plus, I saw stuff where they talked about what it does to your body. They were constantly doing blood work on me to check my liver for damage, which thank God nothing was wrong. And to this day, nothing's wrong with my liver.
Yeah.
Which very well could have been. And then one particular day, right about that same time as the church thing, they brought my kids and my wife in, and I had to sit and listen to what they hated about me.
Wow.
And I couldn't defend anything. I had to sit there and listen. I wasn't allowed to talk. I had to sit there and listen to that.
How old were your kids at the time?
My daughter was 4, and my son was, no. Taylor was 9. Ray was 8. Taylor was 9.
That's a hard age to have to hear stuff like that from your kids.
Yeah.
Because they can understand everything. It's not like they're so young that they don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I take that back. Taylor was 11. Ray was 10. So yeah, they were old enough to know. They were getting into their tween age.
Yeah.
So that was a real eye opener, because you couldn't go, but you just couldn't stand up for yourself. You had to sit there and listen to what you had done to them while you'd been drinking. And I think that was a very powerful, way for me to think about who I had hurt and how bad I had hurt them. And to this day, I don't think that there's 100% healing from my kids regarding that. I still think that we're still growing to get better from that.
Yeah, but it's interesting because now like you can also set that example for them. They could see both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how they are, now, but like I'm sure that they can have that kind of an example to look back on, and if they want to make those decisions on alcohol with their life. So
yeah, I mean they've both experimented in their own ways. And I've told them, you have to make your own choices. You just know what your dad went through.
Yep.
And there is a history in my family of it. So you know your history. Just be mindful of that when you go out there and you live in that world. And of course, my son currently works for IDOC.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter, she works for Amazon. And she's finding her way slowly and steadily. But I think they're both mature enough now that they know what to watch out for. And I'm slowly starting to learn how to communicate with them and be a better dad with them, be more of a coach than a dictator with them, so to speak.
Like a mentor.
Yeah, more of a mentor. And Shelly's helped me immensely with that. She's bridged that gap a lot with me, taught me how to communicate more, be more of a listener than a talker.
I'm sure it's got to be hard with all your roles that you had through leadership in the military and in the prison, and even now you're still in a law enforcement role where you were, enforcing stuff, to then realizing that your kids aren't like you're more of a mentor to them than you are, like you said, a dictator or the enforcer. There's times you need to enforce, but there's times there needs to be more coaching than it is like do as I say kind of thing.
Yeah, and there was one day that my daughter and I don't always see eye to eye politically. And in the current world of events, I mean, oh my God, relationships are going into the trash over what's going on in the world. And instead of, at one point, we got a little mad at each other, but then we talked through the day. And even my daughter said that she was happy that we were able to have a conflict, talk our way through it, and still love each other at the end of the conflict versus the way it used to be, where it was F you, no, F you, and then communication shuts off.
Yeah.
So we're able to communicate and talk to each other and talk our conflict out now.
Yeah. What was the hardest part, like when you get out of rehab, like for triggers and stuff?
It was probably, well, one of the hardest parts to remember was when I first moved out here, which was 3 or 4 months later. I think Beer Fest was going on downtown Boise. And we decided to go downtown to just walk around and do stuff. And I didn't know Beer Fest was going on. I turned a corner and I could smell beer.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a trigger. I guess the biggest trigger would be stress that I had, but I don't remember up until I was single, but between the time I met Shelly and the time that my ex-wife and I divorced or split up, that was the toughest time, but that was the biggest test I'd had. But I don't remember. I think I just changed my mindset to where, to me, it was like I just knew it was just a trigger. I didn't really feel like I had triggers.
Yeah.
I just stayed away from it. I stayed away from any environment. I changed friends. I moved 1,200 miles away from my environment that I was used to.
Yeah.
I completely restarted my life. And so that's a big thing that I tell people is that if you're going to quit and you're going to be serious about any sort of substance abuse rehabilitation recovery, you have got to change your life. You've got to change your background. You've got to change your friends. You can't sit around and do methamphetamine and then go get sober and then come and hang out with the person that sold you the methamphetamine.
Right.
You just, because you're going to go right back into doing it. Unless that person quits doing methamphetamine, using that as an example.
Yeah.
But you have to make those changes. You can't go back to the same life and expect just to be able to get by. And I think that helped me moving out here. And I had a good support system with the people I was working with here. Everybody knew my past. And I just kind of enveloped myself into making sure I didn't fall in that again. And so I don't remember triggers really getting to me. When the ex-wife and I started to split up and before I met Shelly, there was a few nights, because I worked at the Speedway part-time for extra cash. And I can remember that was tough because I got posted a lot by where they'd sell beer and stuff. I just kind of put it out of my mind and get focused on watching what was going on with like the race and stuff because I love racing. But coming home, the demons would start pecking at me. And I would kept telling myself, if I can just get inside my door, if I can get in my apartment, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if I stop, pull into a gas station for anything, I'm buying beer.
Yeah.
And it was that close. In fact, I dated a gal right before I met Shelly that would come to my apartment. She would bring beer with her, and she would leave and leave her beer. And finally, I was like, "You've got to go."
Yeah.
You're feeding the demons I'm trying to keep at bay here.
Right.
And then I met Shelly, and I found that she's not a drinker. She'll have a few occasionally. Very seldom does Shelly ever push herself to that inebriated state. Well, not even inebriated, where she's got a buzz.
Right.
She doesn't do that. She respects my feelings towards it and whatnot. And so I was able to put all that behind me. And again, I think I'm blessed because I've had a lot easier time than most people have. One of the things I do in my job is I don't know if you're familiar with drug court.
I've heard of it. I don't really know exactly what everything is though.
So drug court is somebody gets a felony for whether it's could be marijuana, could be methamphetamine, could be heroin, could be alcohol. They've gotten their 5th DUI.
Right.
And they can petition to become a member of drug court. And so it's an extensive programming thing that they can do in lieu of going to prison. They're still on felony probation. They're just overseen. They got to come in. They have phases that they move through in it. They have to do a community service project. It's very, very programming oriented. One screw up and your time gets implemented and you're going to IDOC. So it's very strict. And so I get to work with that every now and then. Like Tuesday, I'm the bailiff in drug court, and I get to watch 2 kids graduate drug court that they're making it out of drug court, and they're getting their unsupervised probation papers, and they don't have to do anymore.
Nice.
They're done. And so I tell all these people, and I've gotten to talk in front of drug court too, and it's amazing. But I tell them, you've got to change who you hang out with. You cannot hang out with the same people that fed your addiction. You can't. You just can't do it. And you've got to change what you do. You got to change how you look at life. You got to get in your mind that being honest means you have to be honest with yourself even when nobody's looking. You have to be honest with yourself when nobody's looking.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you keep lying to yourself or losing trust with yourself, and that's the only person you got, then you're not going to believe anything that you say to yourself.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they'll like set goals and then they'll keep giving up on themselves, and then eventually you just stop believing in yourself.
Exactly. And it could be the same with anything. It could be the same with your physical fitness. It could be the same with your diet. It all depends. It all is about how stubborn are you going to be with yourself and holding yourself accountable. Like I always was an ass about making sure I had enough money in my account to have money for beer for 2 weeks. And so I took that thought and thought, if I was such an ass about making sure I had that drink, I'm going to be an ass to myself about not having that drink and hold myself accountable for those thoughts. And if I do have a thought like that, then I'm going to go find somebody to talk to about it and say, demons are choking me out today. I need to sit down and talk.
Yeah.
That's hard. That's hard for people to admit that they've got that weakness.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning to deal with it. Shelly still has to remind me every now and then that if I'm having feelings like that, I need to tell her and talk about it. But I feel like I'm getting a little bit better at it. But yeah, it's a lot about holding yourself accountable when nobody's looking.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that really got me to switch to stop drinking alcohol back in 23 was just a lot of the inmates, like from working in the prison, and we were working transport, so they would talk to you once you get out of the prison, and a lot of times we would just ask them like, how'd you end up here? And a lot of times people were like, I was just a drunk, stupid night, and I made a bad decision when I was drunk.
Yeah.
And I was like, how many times have I heard this, and then to think that I'm any better than them, that it couldn't happen to me.
Exactly.
Like I remember one specific guy, I stripped him out, and you could tell it was like his first time ever being stripped out, really nervous. And even he said like, sorry, this is my first time. I've never even got a speeding ticket before. And I was like, oh, dang, what are you in here for? He's like, I murdered my roommate. And he told me the story how he was just drinking one night, and then next thing he knew, he woke up and he was handcuffed to the bed in the hospital. Cops standing around him, and he asked him like, what's going on? And they ended up proceeding to tell him that you blacked out and your roommate's dead, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. And it came out that he had murdered him, but he's like, I'd never even had a speeding ticket before. And it was just one night of drinking alcohol. And I think, man, that's like one of the top stories that sticks with me. But I mean, back before they took away like reading PSIs, like I would be bored and I would just read people's PSIs. Well, I told you not to, but whatever. And,
I did the same thing.
Yeah, but I mean, how many times would you read it? And it was because they weren't sober, and it was something they did while they were drunk or high, or and
or they did something to feed that habit.
And a lot of times, like when people are sober inside a prison, you're like, man, this guy is such a good guy. Like, and you hate to be that guy. And you're like, oh, I gotta go look and see what he did. But but a lot of times it would be that it was something that happened when they were drunk.
Yeah, I did that too. I'd get a good rapport with an inmate. I'd be like, this guy's all right, man. He likes the same music, likes the same sports I do. He likes to hunt. He likes to fish. I mean, take the prison out of this, I'd probably be friends with this guy. I wonder what he did. And you look it up and you're like, ooh, gee, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. There's some of those too that it's like, oh, never. Okay. But then other times you're like, man, like when inmates would tell us like the only difference between you and me is you didn't get caught.
It's not that far from the truth.
That's a lot of truth.
There is. And I'm 100% sure that if I have a guardian angel, mine looks like the dude on the Mayhem commercials. He's had the shit beat out of him. He's got a black eye, stitches up here. He's got to, because the amount of times that I should have been in prison or should have been in jail,
Mm-hmm.
it just baffles me how I managed to get to where I'm at now, to where I was at then.
Yeah. What was it that made you want to go work in a prison?
Needed a job.
Yeah.
In 2013, the economy went south, and the government decided that if the government was going to shut down or they could not come up with a budget, that the money that they needed for whatever during a shutdown at that time, they called it a sequester or something, and that they were going to take money out of the military budget to cover that. And around 2013, government shut down, so they pulled the money out of the government budget, and my job went out the door. So I went from, I was pretty much active duty, and I was getting all the active duty benefits, to nothing. And so I started applying for jobs. I was going to job fairs. I had no intention of going into law enforcement at that time. I figured that ship had sailed. And then I went to church one time with the guy that I was hanging out with, and I started talking. It was Bible study. He had talked me into going. And I've never been one that goes, I'm not a huge fan of organized religion, because I guess my thing is I know what I believe, and I can read it and infer by myself how I feel that that's meant to impress upon me. But what I don't like is somebody that he doesn't know any more than I do, and he's up there trying to tell me how I should live and how much money I should give him so he can go to Europe and tell people about God,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm against. And so anyway, I went to Bible study, and I was talking to a guy that worked at IDOC at the time, and he was telling me all about it. I mean, he sold it. He was in love with his job.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, you know what? I'm kind of hungry, so I need a job. And so I applied for CCA at the time. It was before IDOC took it over. CCA told me I didn't meet their moral standards according to their entrance test, which is funny.
That's funny. Yeah.
And I applied for IDOC, and I got hired by IDOC. And I don't know if they do this now, but at the time they used to make you go through a physical. And so I had made it all the way through everything, had my conditional offer, and I had to go out to the farm to take a physical.
Yep.
And my blood pressure was running high, and I was scared to death they were going to boot me for that. And they ended up getting me to take a test enough to where it came down. And I'm on my way home, and HR calls me on my phone and says, so when you applied here, the test that you take online when you apply, I said, yeah, what about it? Yeah, you failed that. I said, how the hell did I fail a test that basically asked me my name, my social security number, and my employment history? How did I fail that? Well, you didn't answer any of them. I said, the hell I didn't. So you need me to come in and retake it? No, you're going to have to reapply and start over. Like, oh. So I ended up reapplying, and it's like took me another 8 months to get through the process. And again, I'm not working. And I end up that time, and it was April of 2014. I started at IDOC. I made it through everything, and then went to post. I had my week of new employee orientation, and I started post the second week, and been in that field ever since.
Yeah. In the law enforcement field.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did what, 7-8 years?
Yeah, I started in 2014, and I left in 22, so 8 years.
Did you always worked at the yard and the farm?
Yeah, I did. I started at the yard. I worked pretty much every post there. And then in 2017, I was kind of at an impasse, starting to get a little jaded. It was funny because twice it had happened. I had tested for corporal and tested for sergeant. And every time I tested for sergeant, my current sergeant would say, "Why are you wasting your time? They don't promote people from officer to sergeant. You're just wasting your time." I said, "I'm just doing it for the interview experience." Well, I would always get an interview for sergeant, but not meet the minimum requirements to be a corporal. And I would get so mad. And around 2017, I was kind of thinking, maybe I need to start looking at something else. This is really starting. And it was about the same time I was separating from my ex-wife. And so I wasn't in the best of places. And one of the lieutenants he was in charge of the Speedway security crew that worked at Meridian Speedway. He contracted that. He was my former lieutenant. I think he's a warden now. I want to say he's a warden at ISCI now, Nick Baird. But he's like, "Hey man, apply for a transfer. Come over and work with me at the farm. Get a fresh start." I was like, "Yeah, I'll apply, but you guys ain't." Very seldom did the farm ever take people from other facilities. And so I put in for it, and he gave me the transfer. He got it pushed through, and so I transferred over there. And the first day, he said, "I know you've had a bad rap going at the yard. I know you're burned out. I know that you don't agree with a lot of the policies, the way things are done right now with supervisory stuff." And he said, "What I'd like you to do is look at this as a fresh start. Today's your first day of working for IDOC. Start over." I was like, "Okay, deal." And I did that. And that was January 1st of 2018. And in April, he put sergeant stripes on me, promoted me, skipped the corporal process, and put me straight to
Which is
sergeant.
pretty much like a lieutenant over there, right?
Yeah. So I became a shift commander at that point. Went from being the property officer to shift commander. Talk about a wake-up call.
Yeah.
But that gave me kind of a fresh start. And if it wouldn't have been for him, God knows where I would have went from there. I don't know if I would have stayed with IDOC or what I'd have done, but I was kind of at an impasse at that point.
Yeah. Did you work with Travis Taylor?
I did. He was I think he was an operations sergeant when I got to the farm. I worked with him at the yard too for a real short while.
I had him on a few episodes back, and he was telling me a little bit about his farm experience and how it was a whole different experience.
It was.
Yeah.
Going from a secure facility to that was a huge wake up call.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, and even Lieutenant Baird at the time told me that you're going to have to forget what you know. He goes, "Tell us what you know, because an outside eye looking in might spot things we don't see. But this is more geared over here towards guys that have done their hard time and they're getting ready to get out." And he was right. Majority of them guys were over there to work, make money, put some change in their pockets, so when they got out, they had a start.
Yeah.
And so I agreed with most of what they were doing there. It was hard for me to go from, my God, if I found tobacco at the yard, it was almost like finding heroin.
Yeah.
Same offense,
Right.
To the farm, you catch somebody smoking a cigarette, you're like, put it out. Then you go and you look in their C notes. Oh, they don't have a C note. I'll put one in.
Kind of like back when you were in Iowa and they caught you with alcohol driving.
Yeah.
It
It
was
was
like,
like a
out.
slap on the hand.
Yeah.
And then, so when I became a shift commander there, I was thankful that that's where I did it at. And that's where I cut my teeth on that kind of work, was because it was a little bit easier. I had fewer staff to do it. Like there was times when in graveyards, if I was running third or first shift on graveyards, there was times that we were short staffed enough that I'd have one or two people maybe on the north end of the compound and me and the ASC on the other end of the compound. And we would be doing the cheer checks on the units on that end.
Dang.
There was no staff permanently in the unit.
Yeah.
It was that bad sometimes. But for the most part, those guys were so tired from working 16 hours that day that you didn't have any problem from the inmates until they moved the women, to change the half of it to women.
Right.
It was a piece of cake over there.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking on the women. I'm just saying it got a little more a lot more hard work because that was considered a close or a secure facility over there.
The North Dorm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother thing, I think, working with women, because you're dealing with a different kind of emotions than you're working with men.
Exactly. When I was done being a shift commander, I kind of petitioned myself into becoming the housing sergeant. And so I supervised if you wanted, if your bunk was assigned to you, I assigned it to you. You know, I did all of that. I controlled who got brought over, who got kicked out, all of that. And I go down to that north end, and some of them gals would say, I want a bottom bunk. Well, do you have a medical need for a bottom bunk? Because that's who gets those is people with medical need. No, I don't have a medical need for it. Well, then you can't have one. Why? Because somebody else that's got a medical need needs that bottom bunk.
Yeah.
Well, that's stupid. Why is that the rule? I'm not going to argue with you, all right? That's the way it is. You know?
Yeah.
And I used to tell them it's as simple as this. You don't want to have people tell you where to live. Don't do drugs and go to prison.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That's
get any
it.
more simple than that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that was a whole different. That took time to get used to because you're dealing with, I think, and I'm not saying guys are stronger because guys have their share of mental health needs. But I think on the women's side, you also get the abused female, the girl that got with the guy that beat her and hooked her on drugs and everything. And so you're dealing with that past as well. There's a lot. You have to be prepared to deal with a lot more. And it's tough. It's tough. Some of them women, you're like, oh my God, how did you get wrapped into this?
Yeah.
And, you know, and I had a particular warden tell me one time, you don't know what it's like to be an abused woman. Well, no, I understand that, but there's also requirements in society that you follow the rules, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you got to take ownership. Like you can't change what happened to you in the past, but it's still up to you to make sure that you control your future.
But I think that you have just as many problems with the guys as you do the women. It's just the women are very good at verbalizing their needs and their, you know, and so it really works on your communication to have to deal with that. Plus, they can manipulate you.
Yeah.
Really quick. You really got to watch yourself. I got to the point at the farm where, again, I had to walk each unit every day. I would walk that particular unit when they were all at lunch. So there was less apt to have to deal with
Very strategical. Yeah.
Send me a concern form and then walk away.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you ever have to deal with anything with compromising, like staff getting compromised with those kind of units?
In the female side, no. No, I never saw it. There was some after I left, but I didn't see that, so I don't know how much. I feel like
it'd be a lot easier to get compromised with how emotional they are, especially if especially if it's a guy and he's having issues at home and no one's showing him attention, and now you got a woman that's out there and it's like the first thing it teaches you in post, like don't sleep with the inmates.
Yeah, well, and there was a couple of people. One in particular that was a corporal when I started at the farm, and he ended up going to Orfino as an inmate because he was transporting them to medical appointments and then fooling around with them. And
was that the guy that played on the Boise State football team?
No, this is a different one.
Oh, okay.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
this was a different one. And I'm like, dude, you're in a position of power. Mm-hmm. You cannot do that. You have to put your emotions and your self-esteem aside. And it just always baffled me. If you're that hard up, go to a bar at 2:00. You're going to find something.
Yeah.
You know, but there have been some news stories I've seen come out in the last few months about certain staff and fooling around with the inmates. Some accusations have been made, and I knew one of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how true it is, and I knew the individual. I can't remember who it was, but I remember thinking, I never saw anything like that. Yeah. But the bad thing is that if one person does that, then all of us are painted as rapists.
Right.
and compromised people as knuckle draggers that don't
Mm-hmm.
care. You know, one person does it, we're all grouped into that loop.
Yeah.
We're the only profession in law enforcement in general where if one person does something bad, everybody pays for it.
Yeah.
Everybody's just as guilty.
I always found it interesting on the other end too of like the inmates that would be doing life and then the women that would come in to see them. And they're like never have a chance of getting out and they're like stone cold foxes and they're like with them like never have a chance.
Marry
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, it's like you have the whole world and you're going to get this guy he doesn't have a chance of getting out. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. I would work visitation and you see these people coming in and you're like, what the world?
Well, it's even funnier to see the ones that you'd see the women like that come in and they'd have like 3 visits a week. Those guys would, and it'd be a different chick every time. I love you,
Yeah.
baby. Make sure you put money on my books when you get out of here. You know,
Yeah.
it was the same thing every week.
I have enough problems just trying to manage my wife. I can't imagine trying to manage 4 or 5 different of them. It's like, if you ever get out of here, you need to be a manager because you can manage these relationships.
Yeah. What would be funny was, and I saw it once at the yard where there was a guy that did that all the time. Every week he'd have his 3 visits and it was always a different chick. Well, one week one of the guys up front would usually, I don't even call it lying, but if there was one of the women there, he would tell the other 2 that he doesn't have any visits this week. He was in trouble or something and basically cover for him.
Yeah.
Well, one week somebody knew was up there. Nope. Oh, he's already got a visit. Well, who's here to see him? And pretty soon there'd be some chick stand up in the back. That's me. Who are you? And then they would start arguing, like, take it outside, ladies. But it was funny because it ruined the little game he had going with him.
Yeah. You worked in visiting at the yard?
My FTO when I started was visiting corporal.
I was at R&E my last 6 months of working in there on the yard. And it was interesting how many times I got called down on a Saturday to go and escort people because they were bringing stuff in, and I would be up with investigations, and they were like, It was interesting, like a lot more than I ever had any idea before I was an R&E.
Did you ever work with Sergeant Case?
Uh-uh.
Dan Case, yeah, that was my FTO, but he was the visiting corporal at the time, and he was a great FTO. I got plenty of strip outs working with him and visiting, but
I got plenty of those on transport.
Yeah. That was the awesome thing about being the sergeant on transport. If I ever went with any of you guys, I'd just pull rank and say, strip him out.
Yeah. How was that for you going from the sergeant at the farm to then doing the transport?
I was ready. I was starting to get to where I was at a point where, all right, I've got being a shift commander down. I can handle any ICS, instant command system thing they throw at me. I've got the housing department fixed and it's up and running good. What's something new that I can do? And the only other opportunity besides transport was to start getting my lieutenant stuff in line, start getting ready to test for lieutenant. But I wasn't quite sure at that point if that's what I wanted to do because I had a pretty good gig. I went from, working RFM as a shift commander to I ran third shift for about 8 months and then I became the housing sergeant and I was working, basically wrote my own schedule. I just had to work Tuesday through Saturday, but I could work any hours I wanted. Saturday, I was a shift commander for day shift, but the rest of the week I could come to work at 5 a.m. and I could leave at 1. I set my own schedule. And then the transport thing came up and I was like, this is interesting. So I threw my hat in the ring and instantly Terrell Davis, who was Ty Davis, he was my deputy warden. He instantly come to me and he says, oh, I know where you want to be and putting bars on your collar is not the way to go through transport. You're not going to get bars going that route. And then Noelle Barlow Hust was the warden. She gave me the same lecture. She didn't want to see me throw away my career to be in transport.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, I really I want to do something that is brand new that I can put my label on and say, I did that. I set that up. I started that. And so I went to the interview and I found out later down the road that Charlie had no idea who I was. Never met the guy. He'd never heard of me. Martinez was the captain that was in there, and the other captain, I want to say, was Ross. I think it was Captain Ross was the other captain. And so I went to the interview, and I walked out of the interview going, "Well, that was interesting. Guess I ain't going anywhere for a while." I just didn't feel good about it. And then when Charlie called me and offered the position to me, I said, "Wow, that's a shock. I wrote that one off." And so I asked him for feedback, and he said, "Well, I already had my pick made. I was just doing the interviews because policy says I have to." And he said, after you walked out of the room, him and the captains, he looked at the captain and said, "Well, what'd you guys think?" And they said, "Well, if you don't take him, we're going to poach him." And so Charlie offered me the job. And so going into the transport, it was something brand new. I had no idea how to write policy, how to write post orders. I had no idea how to do anything like that. I had no idea where to look, nothing. And Scott Brown and I had worked together, him a sergeant, me as an officer before. And I knew Scott, but I didn't know him that well. And so I was real protected around him. I didn't know who I was dealing with. And then as I worked with him, I steadily got to realize that Scott's super smart when it comes to policy. He knows how to write post orders. He can look at things and go, "Yeah, they're not going to go for that. We need to do it this way because of this, this, and this, and this."
Mm-hmm.
I was good at looking at, okay, this is the policy we've got. This is what we need to put it in place as far as manpower and staffing. I was good at that part. And so we ended up complementing each other really well. I could organize things, and like I had spreadsheets to keep track of my spreadsheets basically. And so I was good on that side of things, where he was good on the policy side of things. And so we complemented each other really well. And it took probably about 4 or 5 months, and we were able to take that. And I felt like the way it was when we started the time I was there, I felt like we had a well-oiled machine set up. We didn't have staffing issues. I was pretty good about getting the medical people to not overtask us.
With urgent stuff?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or emergent?
Oh, we can't cover that. Well, it's emergent. Oh, it's a freaking fingernail. It wasn't emergent an hour ago. What changed? Why is it urgent now?
Yeah.
But I was able to communicate enough and build that rapport that I could get them to work with us. And I was able to get with the other captains and get them to work with us when, hey, I can't cover that. You're going to have to cover that unless you talk to your medical people and tell them to stop. And so it got to where I think it was a well-oiled machine. I'm pretty sure when I decided to leave, it was a shock to a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people thought I would ever leave transport, let alone leave IDOC.
Yeah.
But I was starting, at the point I decided to leave, I was starting to get burned out there. And I was on call 24 hours a day with that place.
Mm-hmm.
When I went on my honeymoon in Cancun, people were calling my phone on my honeymoon. IDOC paid for my phone, so I was expected to answer it when it rang. So even when I left for the day, I was still working from home.
Yeah.
I never had a day off from the place. It was always available by phone.
Yeah, because then when we would have to call off, it wasn't like we're calling the shift command, we're calling you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing I'd do in the morning is I'd get up and I'd get ready to get in the shower. I'd be sitting on the toilet and I'd load my phone up and go, "Matt, I need you to come to work today, damn it."
Yeah.
And
he broke his collarbone.
Yeah. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
You were never an issue, but there was some that was an issue. And so that meant I had to tell somebody else they've got to pull somebody off of their floor who's already short-staffed.
Yeah.
And put that person in a transport spot to cover me.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that personal. And so it ate at me. And even my wife will tell you, there's days I came home and I was effing this and effing that. And I was crabby all the time.
Yeah.
And so toward the end, when I saw the position I'm in now as a marshal come open, I was like, that's a hell of a pay cut. And it was a huge pay cut. But I think I need to look at my mental health and my physical health. I don't want to go back to being a shift commander. I don't want to go back to working in a housing unit. I don't want to go back to, oh, sorry guys, I don't have weekends off now. I can't go up in the mountains and go
Yeah.
hunting. All my friends, my family, everybody had the same days off, and I just couldn't see going back to that.
Yeah.
And I knew it was only a matter of time before they made changes to the higher echelon that would make people get let go, change of leadership, everything else. Oh, he spent enough time in transport. It's time for him to go back to a facility and learn how to be a CO.
Yeah.
No matter how good a job I was doing,
Right.
that's where I was destined. And so at that point, I was like, yeah, I've got to move on.
Yeah.
And this came along. It was almost like it fell into my lap, and I was like, yeah, I'm out of here. I'm out.
How was it juggling everything when COVID hit?
At IDOC, it's
Yeah.
horrible.
Because I remember that was the same week that I called you. You were the first person I called when I broke my collarbone.
Yeah.
I called you up. I was like, I didn't know I broke it. I thought I just dislocated my shoulder, and I was like, hey, I think I'm just dislocated my shoulder. I won't be at work on Monday. And then I called you I think it was later on that night because then I went and got an X-ray, and they're like, all right, it's broke. So
Yeah.
that was funny that I called you before I even called my wife. I was like,
Yeah, I remember calling Brown. Guess what?
yeah,
The COVID stuff was a pain in the ass because it drove me crazy how I could haul a busload of inmates that had COVID.
to Oryx.
No problem.
Yeah,
No problem. I could do that and nobody would question it. But the minute I worked with you and you tested positive for COVID, boom, I had to be quarantined because I was exposed. It's like,
yeah.
does COVID come off of the inmate and go, oh crap, that badge says peace officer. Oh, can't hit him.
Yeah.
And that it was just stupid.
That was a wild year.
Yeah, it was so stupid how they ran that. And and I had COVID twice through that and one time put me in the hospital. I don't know if you remember that, but I was in the hospital on that. But it always drove me nuts. One time I got put on quarantine and I never was around anybody that they said I was around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out later it was meant for Kevin Larson, not me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I was wearing masks. I'm sitting in my office by myself wearing a stinking mask.
Mm-hmm.
How stupid is that?
We always had to keep the blinds shut because people didn't want to wear the mask inside of
Yeah, I
that
know,
little
I
tiny
know.
office. Yeah.
We'd always tell you guys, now, if you guys want to have to deal with this shit, we can,
Yeah.
but keep the door closed and stay out of here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was wild. I remember that year. I was always, I had missed 9 weeks because of my shoulder, and then I came back for like a month, and then I missed another week because my son was born. And then COVID was like, I don't think it was actually in the prison yet. And then me and my partner were the first case that we had transported someone earlier that day that had COVID. And so when we came back in our little Ford Fusion, they wouldn't even let us come into the compound. We went to like Tower 4, dropped our guy off, and there was somebody in a golf cart, picked him up and took him. Then we went and parked the car. We'd stripped our Glock and everything, put it all out there. They wouldn't even let us go into the facility. They took a bug bomb for a bus and put it in our little car, sent us home for the weekend. And then they told us like we can't come back for 10 days. And I told my wife, I told her that I got exposed. And that was funny because then it was like middle of summer and I was like, I'm just going to go quarantine up in the mountains. I'm going to go check my trail camera. She's like, you don't have to. It's fine. I was like, no, I'll take one for the team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the golf courses were still open. I was like, oh, I'll just go quarantine on the golf course. And she's like, you don't have to. It's fine. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. Keep you guys safe.
Yeah, I don't want you guys subjected to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything was so, it was almost like they had 9 million people running the show and none of them knew the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
It was so annoying. And sometimes they would come up with the stupidest thing like, hey, if you go get the COVID shot, you don't have to test every couple of weeks.
And we'll give you 4 hours of paid vacation. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody went and did that. Oh, yeah. So everybody needs to get a COVID test every other week. Which I guess I didn't mind because I would always volunteer to do that at the front gate because it gave me like every 160 hours pay periods I would get. I don't know, it was like 20 hours of overtime just off of standing there and going, here.
Yeah.
All right.
Scratch your
Next.
brain with this.
Here. It
would suck when the medical people do that because they would really scratch your brain.
What the hell was that lady's name that used to do it for us in medical? She used to do the scheduling too, and she used to make me so mad some days because everything was urgent. Cannot remember what her name was. She was that old lady that worked in the yard.
Oh, the Asian lady? Or was
Might
it the
have
Asian one, the main one, or
Yeah, she was the main one, and I cannot
yeah,
remember what her name was to save my life. But I loved her to death, but she made me so mad because
yeah,
everything would turn urgent.
yeah,
Well, this guy, his he needs his hair removed, so when he goes in for his sex change surgery, I don't give a crap about his sex change. I don't have people to drive him, okay?
yeah.
But God, but she would. I had to go down a couple of times. I think it was before we were taking me and Brown had to take that dude down to Salt Lake City, and had to go down there, and she had to give us our COVID test. And I swear to God, she hit the back of my scalp when she went in.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wild some of the stuff that we did end up doing, going out of state, and yeah, you guys were down there for 2 weeks with an inmate.
That was brutal. That was brutal. He,
The biggest baby of them all.
oh my God, he was.
That was something that I've tried telling a lot of people is that the inmates are bad, but it's their parents that call in.
Yeah.
Because his mommy was the one that was always having issues.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. There was. He had done something. Oh, I remember what it was. Because Brown pulled me in the hallway and told me I shouldn't probably talk to people like that. But it was probably about the 7th day we were down there with this guy, and I had it up to here. I was tired of dealing with his every little need. And I mean, most of my days amounted to sitting on my iPod doing solitaire, or on my iPad. And this particular day, Brown and I showed up at 6 a.m. to relieve the night crew. And so they were in the bathroom. We were getting a pass down, and they were swapping the weapon out and everything. And this kid rolls over and goes, "Can you guys be quiet? I'm trying to sleep." I said, "Dude, you slept for 17 hours yesterday. What the hell's 5 minutes going to do now?"
Yeah.
And he continued, and he continued, and he continued. And finally, I walked over and I took the remote control for the TV, and I said, "We ain't watching that shit today. We're watching what I want to watch." And Scott's like, "Hey, man, do you need to go get some breakfast or something?"
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. You need a Snickers?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just, I had it. I'd had it.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever get to see some cool surgeries? You ever get to sit
I
on
never
any?
did. I never got
No?
to do any of those. Well, I wasn't on transport. It was right. I was a brand new officer, and I got to watch a guy get his ankle steel screws and plates put in it.
That was a cool
Broken
opportunity
fight.
being on transport, seeing some cool surgeries. I remember I seen an open heart surgery and just seeing the blood pumping into the heart, and then just draining and how small the heart gets, and then just knowing that there was a machine just keeping this dude alive. And
Yeah.
it was wild. We weren't exactly in the room, but it was a big viewing room outside. And there was only one entrance and exit, so
Yeah, I've seen enough blood and guts in my life that any of the transports. By the time when I was supervising on transport, I pulled rank.
yeah.
I not refused, but I would prefer not to go in. I just didn't feel the need to look. And in fact, the one surgery that I was in was that ankle surgery, and the only reason I was in there is because there was a senior guy that had been an IDOC for 20 years that was the other transport officer, and he goes, "I ain't going. Get in there."
Yeah. So it was a good switch for you going to Marshall, though.
It's cool because you get to see how the criminal justice system works on the front side, and how slow the wheel of justice really turn. And my biggest takeaway from working on the front side of the criminal justice system is you see a lot on TV, people talk about how, oh, this judge let this guy go, or this judge let this guy out of jail. 99 times out of 100, it's not the judge. 99 times out of 100, it's the attorneys that motioned for that, and the judge is going off of what the attorneys decided was fair between the prosecutor and the defense attorney. So,
Like they reach an agreement.
yeah, a lot of times you'll see people say, "Well, this guy's case is getting dismissed," and somebody else says, "Well, who's the judge? We need to drag him out." And hey, the judge isn't dismissing the case. The prosecutor's dismissing the case. Go after the prosecutor if you're going to be mad at somebody. So there's certain things that, you sit and you watch social media.
Yeah.
Everybody's convicted in the court of public opinion on the social media. And so there's been a lot of times where I've been in the know on some of these trials and some of these things, and I'm like, that's not how it works, people. You don't have
Seeing
any,
one side of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you don't know how it works. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I've seen a lot of how it works. And it's like, don't blame the judge. Judge isn't letting that person out. That's some two attorneys coming to an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand the judge doesn't have to agree on it, but if you don't like the prosecutor agreeing to those kind of deals, maybe you should vote in a better prosecutor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're an elected official too.
Okay.
But for the most part, our job as marshals for Elmore County is to protect the judges and order in the court.
Oh, okay.
So that's specifically our biggest task, is to take care of the judges. And you get to be privy to a lot of stuff that most people aren't. And so you really have to exercise self-control to keep stuff that not out in the public, not in the public.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I've had people say, hey, I got jury duty next month. What trials you got coming up? Well, I could look, but why would I tell you? Because now I'm tainting the jury pool.
Yeah.
And if I tell you about a case, then there's a mistrial because they found out a juror knew something extra. And then the last thing I want to hear is, well, who told you that information? Well, he did.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? And so I've had a few people come up and say, hey, I got jury duty next month. You got any good ones coming up? I could look, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to, because I can't tell you anything about it.
Yeah.
And it's to keep it fair.
Yeah.
If I was accused of a crime I didn't do, and I'm not saying that everybody's innocent, I'm not a true believer, but if I was convicted, or if I was arrested for a crime that I knew I didn't do,
Yeah.
last thing I'd want is somebody out there tainting the process.
True.
You know, so I try to uphold the process to make it's still a process we have. Is it the best? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a process we have. It's the Constitution. So
Right. That's cool, man. It's good that you've been able to cover a whole array of different things in your life.
yeah,
It's all been kind of around the same kind of serving others kind of thing
yeah,
too.
public
So
service.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you were able to retire from the military too, right?
Yep. I retired in 2022.
It was like right before you left IDOC, right?
No, it's 2021. So yeah, it was about a year before I left IDOC.
Yeah.
I retired with 32 years of combined National Guard, Reserve, and active duty.
You just gonna keep doing the federal thing for a while, or
Well,
not federal, but I mean
yeah,
marshal.
This is county. Yeah, I've got 5 years till I hit Rule of 80.
Okay.
And we've already talked, the wife and I, that she's Rule of 90. And we've agreed that when I pull the trigger on mine, we're both going to retire. So
There you go.
we've been working really hard to put ourselves in a position to have pretty much everything but our house paid off
Nice.
when we pull the trigger. People have asked me, are you going to stay past Rule of 80? And I'm like, nope.
Mm-mm.
First he's going to go congratulate, and before they spit the word congratulations out, I'm out the door.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm going fishing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go play some golf. I'm going to go up in the mountains, go camping. I'm done.
Go live some life.
Yeah, I'm going to enjoy my life. I mean, with this job, it's blessed me with the ability where I don't have to fight for time off. I don't have to schedule it a year out.
Yeah.
I don't have
Bid
to,
for vacation.
Yeah, I don't have to worry about seniority. The only thing seniority does for us at on the marshals, or it used to, was who has or how much time off you get a year. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And what your call sign is, which that doesn't even matter anymore. We don't even assign call signs by seniority.
Yeah.
So I'm still 6. Out of 6, I'm Marshal 6.
Yeah.
So seniority doesn't have anything to do with it. I don't have to bid shifts anymore. I don't have to worry about 5 minutes before I get off. Hey, so I'm going to need you to stay for another 4 hours. Don't have to worry about any of that.
You don't have to worry about decompressing really at the end of the day. You're kind of.
No. And then that was the thing, is at IDOC, I'd leave work, I'd get home, and I'd have to take a nap.
Yeah.
I'd have to go in a room, shut the door, and be quiet for an hour. Where now I don't. And it's just a totally different. Now I fight boredom more than I do anything.
Yeah.
If there's no court going on, it's a little dry.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's I'm pretty happy with where I'm going to close my career out. Um, it, it feels good to be able to, like one of the judges, I've went and played golf with him, and he's a blast to play golf with. We don't talk about work.
Yeah.
We don't talk about work. We go out and we play golf. And one time last year, I rode my motorcycle up here and I met him at the Idaho Racquetball Club, and then we did the Loman Loop on our motorcycles.
There you go.
And had a blast the whole day long. It was like Scott and Brian. There was no, I still won't call him that. I still call him Your Honor.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Hey, my name's Brian. Cool, Your Honor.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of nice you meet people that, that in the public eye, there's so much power there with that individual, and to meet and see the personal side of somebody like that. But you don't talk a lot about it with people. But at the end of the day, they put their pants on the same way as we do, and they're just a lot more educated, and whatever they want, they get.
Yeah. So what's your best advice for someone that's in like the law enforcement or in the military or any of that, like that needs to decompress and not manage their stress in a healthier way than just alcohol?
I would find better outlets like the physical fitness part. That definitely helps. Sometimes if I need an escape, I'll go play a video game for a little while. But that can be addictive. That can get to a point where it takes up all your time. And if you've got a family, now you're taking time away from your family.
Yeah.
I play games a little bit, but I try not to play it when we're both available. Like I get up in the morning, I get in the shower, take my shower, and I'll sit down and play a video game while she's getting ready for work.
Yeah.
Things like that. Or I might play before she gets out of bed in the morning if I wake up before she does. But very seldom will I take time away from our time together to do that. Some other things would be hiking. Get out and enjoy nature.
Yeah.
I've never been big on hiking after being in the Army and being told to get on a ruck and march.
Yeah.
I was never big on it. Last year, we went for a hike up in the foothills, and we were walking along, and Shelly, I said to her, wouldn't it be cool if we found a shed? I mean, this is in November.
Yeah.
I said, but they're probably already all picked up by now. And she says, well, we're not in a place where you're probably going to find any. There's no trees. It's all scrub brush and everything. And I was like, oh, well, look at that. And I looked down, and there was a shed.
That's
First
cool.
shed I ever found.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get more into doing a little bit more of that, because I realized that, it sucked in the Army, but to go out and do it just to enjoy being out in the quiet,
yeah,
you can't beat it. Can't beat it.
Yeah.
It is, to me, the biggest. That, going fishing, I don't care. A lot of times I don't give a shit if I catch a fish.
I've seen you guys doing like kayaking and stuff too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of kayaking. I've never been big on kayaking, but she loves to do it, and I'm good once I get out there. I hate packing all the crap in the truck if you can get me past that part, I'd love every minute of it. Last year, 2 years ago, I threw my kayak through the back of my truck loading it. I was so mad.
Was it you that said that you lost a shotgun while
no,
you were
that
duck
was
hunting? Or?
That was my best friend. He took his grandkid duck hunting. They were kayaking down the Bruno River duck hunt, and hit some current and rolled the kayak. And we went back out there that spring, with magnets, trying to magnet fish the shotguns out of the room. We never did find them.
Probably just full of sediment over the top of it or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it got buried.
Yeah.
We never did find it. But no, I've never kayaked and hunted before, but I'd be willing to try it. But I did learn. I told him, I said, did you learn to put a dummy cord on that damn thing before you put it in your kayak? 'Cause
yeah, that's rough. Especially if it's a nice shotgun like a Benelli or something.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of touched on it too, of people need to have friends outside of whatever job they're in, or to not talk about their job if they are from the same,
Yeah.
Don't always be stuck in that law enforcement or military or like.
Yeah, you probably saw it at IDOC where COs work together, and then they leave work and then they go and hang out together, and that's all they would talk about is work. Mm-hmm. And so work never escapes your mind.
Yeah.
Where the group I work with now, or that I hang out with now, we're all affiliated with law enforcement some way. However, that does not dominate our conversation.
Yeah.
We might talk a little bit, 10 minutes tops, on a
Right.
night we're all playing cards together about law enforcement or about work. And after that, it's
Mm-hmm.
general conversation. So we keep our work lives completely separate
Yeah.
from what we deal with. So that's the big thing is you got to learn a way to get, especially in law enforcement, to get it out of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be tricky sometimes because you can see some pretty messed up stuff or go through stuff, and then that's how you bond with people is like in those, cell extraction or something,
Yeah,
or it's
yeah.
like,
I have a new staff member in the marshal's office that this is her first gig in law enforcement. She worked at a grocery store for like 12 years.
mm-hmm.
And this is her first. She wanted to get into law enforcement, and she thought this would be a great job, and she still does. But she thought that it would fit her schedule and everything. And the other day, my boss and he used to be a sergeant with the jail, and so we've both got facility experience. And we were telling her stories, and she was like, "Oh my God!" And I'm like, "Oh, you don't know the half of it.
Yeah.
You do not know the half of what goes on in those
Yeah.
facilities."
It's wild.
But yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing a lot of your wisdom and experiences. I think it's cool when everybody gets a chance to share, things they've gone through, and others can relate and, get some ideas of how they can make some changes in their life. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's I like talking about the substance abuse because I think it's kind of a hidden secret people don't like to talk about because
mm-hmm.
it's a weakness.
Yeah.
And I think it's a weakness that can be overcome. It's just you have to be willing to make the changes in your life to make it work.
Absolutely. Yep. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.